timelines. My name is Henry LaFollette, and I serve as the East ESSA Oversight Coordinator for the department. And we have several people from TDOE with us today, but we appreciate you being here and taking your time this morning to join us for this presentation. Remember, we do not allow any AI tools to record or to be a part of the presentation, so we'll be removing those as we go today. You'll see our agenda. Our agenda for today is comparability, a fiscal test, illustrating comparability, what are we comparing, grade span grouping, comparability overview, and then the review process for documenting comparability within the data and information tab. You'll also be provided with some resources at the end. So why do we do comparability? Basically, it's to make sure that we demonstrate that state and local funds are used to provide services to all schools and not to take away any services from Title I Part A schools and make sure they're comparable in services to other non-Title I schools. We do this by different grade span groupings. We do it also by comparing large schools to small schools. And as we go through this comparability tool, you'll see that today. Remember that grouping should be reflected of what is in your current CFA for this fiscal year 26. And while we do the comparability is it's a prerequisite to receiving your Title I-A funds every year. So within the state of Tennessee, that's why comparability is required yearly. And each LEA must perform comparability calculations annually to demonstrate that Title I schools within the LEA are in fact comparable and make adjustments if any are not comparable. We do this at the when we open in October. We review this, and then by January the 1st, if we find any schools or any districts that may have comparability issues, we have those corrected. That way, going into the second semester, everyone is comparable. It's comparability. It's a fiscal test. For giggles, can anybody enter into the chat the 3 fiscal tests that are required for Title I Part A besides Lynn Dotson? I know he knows all 3. If you entered supplement, not supplant, comparability, and maintenance of effort, you got all 3 of those, and we're excited that you do represent probably the elite people who know all 3 of those fiscal tests. But comparability is probably our biggest test that we do because we do it annually, and we review all those schools and all those positions to make sure that you guys are comparable within your districts. Comparability is a school level calculation that measures the level of state and local funds being provided to Title I and non-Title I schools. Comparability helps ensure that Title I schools are receiving state and local funds and services that are at least equal to the services that are being provided to those non-Title I schools. We're just ensuring that we're not using more local and state money at schools that don't receive Title I funding. As I said, comparability is an annual requirement. Tennessee requires this comparability testing and documentation every single year, and LEAs are required to have that written procedure for calculating comparability. So as we talk about illustrating comparability, we're going to give you some examples, and that could open up some possibility that you see for a different viewpoint for the first time. Schools in your LEA, we have Title I schools, we have non-Title I schools. They all look the same across the board, right? So when we're talking about that funding source, all of those schools should get comparable state and local funding. So you see that all the Title I schools, all the non-Title I schools have those same pots of money, equal across the board. Then when we add in Title I funds, I know you've heard it often said, Title I is the cherry on top. It is that supplemental funding to buy things that state and local would not, to provide that good high quality education services to our children. So you see, we put the 3 cherries there as the cherries on top for those Title I schools. But they're still receiving that equal state and local funding at this point. So when we see schools that are non-compliant, you may see such as school number one there, where they lost the one pot, and the non-title school gained that one pot into five pots across the board, two pots, three pots, but they're not comparable at this point because we're supplementing the non-Title I schools with state and local dollars because they don't receive Title I. So those schools are no longer comparable, and that's where we find out during our comparability test. That's where we have to correct that. So what are we comparing? So when you're doing comparability, we are comparing three or four different pieces at the same time. We can do an LEA wide basis, grade band spans basis, or alternative basis. With LEA wide basis, Title I schools are compared to non-Title I schools. Grade band spans are from Title I schools are compared to non-Title I schools in those same grade band or spans. And then alternative basis, you would compare your large schools to small schools, or high poverty schools or compared to low poverty schools. Note here is that all schools in the LEA are Title I schools, and the Title I schools are compared to other Title I schools. So we do several comparisons to make sure we get to the right comparability. There are three methods available. We can do student instructional staff ratio, per pupil expenditures, or salary equivalents. With student instructional staff ratio, we compare the distribution of instructional staff, your FTEs. This is our default method for the state of Tennessee. When we download that information into Form 2, that's where we're looking at staff ratios. Per pupil expenditure compares the state and local allocation per student, including instructional staff and materials. This is an alternative method that we do once we can't get the student instructional staff ratio to work. And then the salary equivalence compares school instructional salaries, and this one is actually not allowed in the state of Tennessee at this time, but it's one of the ones that could be accepted uh, across the nation, but Tennessee has opted out of it. So instructional staff includes teachers, principals, assistant principals, teacher assistants, music, art, and CTE teachers, but it does not include secretaries, custodial, and other facility support personnel. So possible exclusions also include language instruction education programs, excess cost in providing special education services, LEAs that have one building per grade span, and schools with less than 100 students are often were excluded. So looking at grade span groupings, if LEA has multiple schools serving grades that cross more than one of the basic grade span grouping configurations, and at least one of those schools is a Title I school, those schools may be compared as separate grade span groupings. And an example here is if we have an LEA with basic organization of K5, 6, 8, 9, 12, the LEA would have three grade span groupings. That's a really simple one. But sometimes we'll have that same grade band grouping, but we'll have at least two schools, three schools that have K8. Then at one of those schools are Title I, then we can actually do the four grade span grouping where we have the traditional three and then adding that fourth one being a K8 to compare to all other K8s. We define grade span groupings for comparability must take into consideration which grades the LEA serves with Title I Part A funds. So with Title I schools in the LEA serve only K8, but not grades 9, 12, the comparability calculations only need to include the Title I or non-Title I elementary middle schools, but not the non-Title I high schools. However, if a school crosses multiple grade span groupings where any grades in the LEA are served with Title I funds, it must be included in one of the grade span groupings of basic organizations of the LEA. No school may be excluded from comparability simply because it crosses multiple grade span groupings. And for instance here is if you have the traditional K5, 6, 8, 9, 12, that would be your three grade span groupings, but you only have one school that may be a K6. We would still compare that school to a K5 grade span. Likewise, if LEA has two K8s, the LEA would still have only 3 grade span groupings for comparability because at least one of those K-8 schools is a non-Title I school. So we'd still compare those with the K-5s or the 6-8s, depending on which one is being served with Title I money or what grade levels and what is comparable. So navigating the comparability application supplement, this will be found under the data information tab. And I would like to bring in a special guest, Assistant Commissioner Deborah Thompson, to discuss this area for us really quickly.
So not going to steal Henry's spotlight today talking through the comparability instrument e-plan, but we are going to meet districts where we are this year. As you all know, there's been some complications with some of our data systems. We're migrating to a new data system here at the agency and asking LEAs to use it. And so we will be asking districts to complete the comparability supplement in FY25 this year, but you will be preloaded with data from last year. So in the past, we've been able to move and put in new data that you all have reported. This year, we'll be using lag data that you all have approved and used last year from your final comparability submissions, and we will be providing additional support. So you'll be getting a one-pager overview that provides exactly what we will need you all to do. But knowing that a lot of you start having comparability discussions with directors of schools and district leadership before you start working in ePlan, we wanted to go ahead and host today's webinar. So note that this instrument might look a little different than what we've asked in years past. We will be using the most current reliable data that we have, which is from last year, to preload and make sure that you all have the support you need. So Henry, thanks for the opportunity just to provide a quick update. I don't want to steal his thunder, but I do think by mid-October, we'll be releasing that one pager as well as opening this instrument. Thanks, Henry.
Thank you, Director Thompson. So as you see on your screen right now, this is a screenshot of what it looks like in the Data and Information tab in ePlan. You'll see that you'll actually click on the fiscal year FY 2025, and you'll see comparability listed as 25-26. As she said, we'll use last year's comparability tool, and we'll update that information for FY 26. This is what the section page will now look like. You'll see again comparability FY 2025-2026, and it'll have the 2026 date embedded in with the 2025. We will update these pages under the 2025 tab and with the 2026 information. Sorry about that. Grade spans, you'll set up your grade spans the exact same as your school eligibility page in the LEA's FY26, as we said earlier. K5, 6, 8, 9, 12, whatever grade spans is what you have in your CFA. And then also, if you have those schools that go across the multiple grade spans, that's where we can add a grade span to that page. You'll input your data in the school information page. School list will auto-populate from the CFA from last year. Grade span drop-down menus will generate from previous page. And then you'll enter your school counts for the current school year for enrollment and low income. The licensed instructional staff, the data is on the school information section. We'll pull from Form 2 section within Comparability Application Supplement. And this data will be pulled from EIS from last year within the Form 2 section. So again, you'll have to go in and correct this data, and it will auto-populate onto your page for your licensed instructional staff. The support staff, this page must correspond to uploaded Form 3. You'll upload that under the related documents section, and you'll input all your related personnel for supporting instruction there. LEAs have the capability this year to exclude staff, utilizing the checkboxes beside each row for support staff, and make sure you're consistent for the exclusions among every school. So if you exclude it at one school, it needs to be excluded at all schools. Form 2 is populated with name and assignment of the K-12 licensed instructional staff. The data was pulled from October 1st count from EIS. Staff is listed by each school, and the data from this page pulls the instructional staff counts onto the school information page for you. As you're manipulating this page, especially since we're pulling data from last year onto this page, you will make sure you click the drop down box for your individual schools. You can add staff, or you can use the trash can to delete staff when you're working within this section. So when you get the comparability method, you'll see that there are 4 different methods to see if a school passed or not. Currently, we're showing the 110% student staff ratio for non-Title I schools. You'll see that it'll give you all green passed all the way down. Once you get that in one column, you will no longer have to do anything. That means that you've passed your comparability. Um, when you see a red fail in any of the columns, and but you have a red in each and one of the 4 columns, we just have to have you pass on one method. So we want to make sure that you have one column green all the way down. You don't have to try to get all 4 columns green. Sometimes I have that with new directors. They're worried they got to get all 4 columns. Again, you only have to have one column green all the way down to make sure that you pass. So other required forms are Form 3, which is your support personnel, your written procedures, and your source documentation. We want to make sure that we're keeping all those records on file at your district office, and it can be easily accessible in case we need to look at those when we're looking for comparability if we find any issues when we're reviewing. Form 3 is an Excel file that must be completed and uploaded in the related documents section. Other forms in the related document sections other than Form 3 are for alternative methods only and need to be approved by us prior to uploading those methods. Please do not print or scan any Excel files. If the Excel files are printed and scanned, the department will contact the LEA to upload the completed Excel files. Your written procedure must include identification of the office responsible for making comparability calculations, timeline for demonstrating comparability, method and process for collecting data required to demonstrate comparability, your selected basis for demonstrating comparability, and how and when the LEA makes adjustments in schools that are not comparable. So you'll have all those set in place. So once you get your comparability finished and we find anything not comparable there, you already have those processes in place to handle that. And of course, the source documentation to support the calculations and forms submitted, just make sure you have those on hand for us to review if necessary. So if schools are not comparable, the LEA will be notified and we'll work with you. If you get on your comparability page and you can't get any the methods to turn green all the way down, you're going to reach out to your coordinator. We're going to work with you. We're going to start with everybody, and then we're going to start looking at exclusions that you're allowed to exclude. We're going to work with you hand in hand to make sure we get to you to the best point where you're comparable. Sometimes we think outside the box, and something you may have just overlooked, we catch really quickly, and we can fix that issue for you, and we can get you all green on your comparability method. After review by the department, if we still find that we're not showing comparability, that's when we'll work with you to discuss what we can do to fix that, maybe that staffing issue. Have that crucial conversation with your director of schools that you might have to move a staff mid-year, but we'll be hand in hand with you as partners to work through this. So comparability deadlines, of course, we have to have you comparable by January the 1st so that everyone going forward in second semester is comparable and all staff is where they need to be. Uh, Heather, if you don't mind coming off mute right now and giving us the deadlines and when the supplement will open for them.
So right now, I'm going to give the word tentative as a deadline, but we are tentatively, and we're working with our vendor, looking at a start date around October 15th. So remember, I'm using keyword tentative here, and the tentative end close date would be November 20th.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So resources and technical assistance, you'll have the comparability guide that you can download. And then this webinar will be uploaded to the TDOE resources page just as soon as we get it transcribed. The divisional coordinators, you'll see the contacts there. Lynn Dotson in West Tennessee, Alicia Gilmore, Middle Tennessee. Heather Farley has the top 20 large urban most populous LEAs and is the director of our team. And then I serve East Tennessee. And with that, I'm going to share a session feedback. But once you complete this, please stay on the line. We are going to open it up for questions after we stop recording.